Okay, in anybody from 1943? No one here from 1943. How about 48, 1948? 44 is close, 48. In 1948, chapel always start right on time? And always get out right on time? Okay. I have no idea. We're starting now, I do know that, but I'm not sure how long it was going to go. But we get to have a lot of fun and memorable things to do afterwards. I'm Darrell Bruner. I think between last night and brunches and so on that I've been able to meet most of you. I say this every year, but I should just play a tape recorder. But this is our special time of year, at least from the Alumni Association. Homecoming's fun, ton of work. But this is just, we cherish this alumni weekend. And now Sue Stans, I believe, was the one who called it Golden Grad Weekend. And you folks certainly are golden, and we appreciate you and having you here this weekend. And good old Nampa, Idaho provides some pretty nice weather. It's never windy here. No, never happens. Let me just say a couple things, and I'm actually going to do one little sell job. That's just part of it, and I want to do it because it's important that we do it. But first of all, I don't need to sell this lady, Sandy Alexander. If you will, those of you who have not met Sandy Alexander, you get to stand. I know you've been doing that a lot this weekend. All right. Appreciate having her here. And we also have Rich and Janella Haygood. And I know you're on big this Saturday, but they're waving right over there. So Dr. Haygood's going to do the commencement address for us on Saturday. So please come to that and look forward to that. I already tried to get him to tell me what story he was going to tell. I don't know, those of you who have heard him speak, he usually starts with a story, but he wouldn't give me even a hint. So we'll see what the surprise is. Joyous. Okay, here's my little sell job. Because there's a couple guys plus a lot of other people that did a lot of work. This is the Centennial books. I will be the first to admit I have not read them yet. If Dr. Alexander would have offered $5 like he did for the for the vision statement and mission statement, but I have not taken the time yet. But everyone I hear from, I should call Chuck Wilkes up here because he gave a great sales job just a few weeks ago. But anyone that hasn't had the opportunity, these are going to be out front, and here's the little sales pitch. Kathy Johnson's back there. If you want to just fill this out, they normally are $59, and normally there's a shipping cost, but a lot of you that have traveled in are here. $49. $49, and they're right out front in the lobby. And we're getting kind of tired of carrying some of the boxes around. So if you could help us out a little bit. but they are just something I think that you will cherish for a long, long time. And guess what you can do? They can go down to the next generation, and this place is important enough to continue to do that. Okay, that's enough of me for now because we have wonderful folks to hear from, and Reverend Ernie McNaught's going to come up here. Thanks.
I do welcome you to this Golden Grad Chapel. And I'm sure for all of us it's a trip down memory lane. The seats you occupy were here 50 years ago when you sat in chapel here. They were one time all unbolted. The seats were unbolted, and we came to chapel with no seats here. They were all stacked in the speech hall. I never knew who got kicked out for that, but because I never told. And I do remember that in one chapel, it was a very unusual, special sound of a mighty rushing cascade of rolling marbles down the same hardboards that you have your feet on today. The size of the auditorium has shrunk. Used to have a balcony and used to go all the way to the hall. But that's just an example of this poor building that has been in so many changes with renovations that I'm sure it's in a more of an identity crisis than the Church of the Nazarene is. But the spirit of the place is still here, isn't it? It brings back to my memory the Spirit of God, and I hope it does to you. In this place, we, as students, gathered partly as an obligation of attendance. It was required. But we gathered. We laughed here. We cried here. We studied here if there was a test after chapel. Some of you slept here. And we sang here. I found myself often captured by the presence of God as I sang and worshiped here, and we're in that again, and even though this is a very unique weekend, I just encourage you, just from my pastoral heart, that you open your heart again and let the Spirit of God flood you, if that's the way it needs to be, as we sing and share together. Dr. David Alexander, our university president, is going to lead us in the new hymn of the university.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's my privilege to welcome you back to the campus of your alma mater. I am so pleased that you are here and hope you have a wonderful time gathering and seeing familiar faces. I hope you can recognize one another's familiar faces. You know, there's a funny thing. College freshmen are always 18, but each year I come to this Golden Grad reunion, and the people continue to look younger and younger to me each year. It's a phenomena of nature that I can't quite understand, but it is so good to welcome you back to your alma mater on this special year. You know, we lit the candles of the centennial celebration in November of 2012, and we'll blow out the candles of centennial celebration in November of 2013. The final concert will feature a 300-voiced choir of NNU current students and alumni singers and orchestra and our special guest artist, Michael W. Smith. And I hope you'll begin making plans now to be a part of that wonderful weekend. And as Darrell has already referenced, although you know, Darrell, you don't get full credit for making a pitch for a book you haven't read. It may be, I am going to go check your college transcript in the basement here after that. It may be reflective of that, I don't know. Those are two labors of love, each in their own unique way, tell our story. The first, a historical narrative written by Dick Edelaine, many of whom you know, and his insights into the history of the place. And then the work of Gaiman Bennett in collecting anecdotes from, I think, over 60 different contributors and photos from across the generations, really creating what I call a centennial yearbook. And so if you haven't had opportunity to pick up the copy of those two, I commend them to you. Well, thank you, sir. I would agree. And you know books. You've made some happen yourself, so I'm going to give that extra merit. In 2009, it seemed appropriate to reflect upon what we wanted to sing and celebrate about the university moving into the future. So today in this celebration, we're going to sing the university hymn that has been official since 2009, and we'll also hear the chorus that resounds when we also sing later on, Hallelujah, Amen. But at this time, I invite you to join in singing, Be Thou My Vision. Let's sing together. Be Thou my vision, O Lord of my heart. Not be all else to me, save that Thou art. Thou my best thought, by day or by night, waking or sleeping, Thy presence my light. Be Thou my wisdom, ask you to sing just the voices. This is such a great space to hear your voices resound to the Father. High King of heaven, my victory won. May I reach heaven's joy, bright heaven's sun. Heart of my own heart, whatever befall, still be my vision, O ruler of all. Amen. Thank you.
I was just wondering how he did that without a praise team up here. So then I got to thinking, well, let's see, I should have a praise team up here. And I'm envisioning a group of people standing across here, some with a cane, some leaning on a walker, and I need some help here. We have to have, you don't have to have a praise team anymore, right? Isn't that funny? How times change. I tell you what, I was listening to you sing, and you sound like a choir to me. I'm kind of a choir director. I'd like for you to stand, and let's just turn this into a choir piece. How firm a foundation. Let's stand, and if you know some parts, sing parts.
Thank you. Wasn't that great? If this was a formal introduction, I would, of our speaker today, I would read his vita, and it is about 6 pages long of the things he's done. And I won't take time to read all of it. There's more pages. Or I would probably read from articles that have been published about him, or letters from world leaders that write his praises. But since this is a chapel, a spiritual experience, I just want to personalize my introduction. Jim and I went to school here on campus for 10 years. We share that in common. Lest you think we were that poor students, we started in the 7th grade in College High School that was over here where the student center was, and graduated from here 10 years later. We also have some other things in common. We were both married before we graduated. He was married before me, but I married my last semester in school, so I can claim to be married before I graduated. We both owned Model A cars or vehicles. Now, his was a fully restored Model A 4-door sedan. Mine was a Model A pickup that never got past the primer stage of paint. But we share something else that I just have thought about often. Because we both experienced a life-changing happening in our 30s. I was shocked into a reevaluation of what I would do with the remaining time and strength I had when I was told by my doctor in Kansas City that I either had lupus or rheumatoid arthritis. Then he said, if you have lupus, it is such a severe, quickly onset, hard case. If we can't get on top of it, you'll die. If it's rheumatoid arthritis and we can't get on top of it, you'll wish you could die. And so I had to reevaluate. What am I going to do with the time and strength I have left? Jim was shocked into a reevaluation of what he would do with the remaining time and strength that he had when he was in his 30s. He recognized that his quest to gain another dollar for himself, even though he had successfully gained 16 million at that point. But he recognized it was not enough. If you do it for yourself, you want a little more. And even recognized that this thrill of making another big deal was, by his word, addictive. And he, in that recognition, promised God that if he would help him out of that and make him a simple man, he would never use his skills and ideas for personal gain again. And from that prayer came the formation of Project CURE, Coalition for Urgent Relief and Equipment. And that's what he's done with his life since the mid-30s. Project Cure is now the largest distributor of donated medical equipment in the world to third world countries. I just kind of like to associate with people who have intentionally moved from the selfishness of personal gain to the satisfaction of doing everything they can to make sure somebody else is better off. I just like to associate with people like that. I like to associate with people who have some very visibly and many who have just extremely quietly just done what God asked them to do. That's a lot of you. I welcome to this chapel experience this morning Dr. Anna Maria Johnson Jackson, who is a big part of Project Cure and a real partner in this humanitarian effort. And I introduce to you Dr. James W. Jackson, a humanitarian economist, a follower of Jesus.
Time now for our Making a Difference report. Tonight, it's about things most of us take for granted at hospitals here in the United States. No matter what you think about healthcare, think of this: clean syringes, sterile dressings in the operating room, basic heart monitoring equipment, proper surroundings and materials. All of it's so common here, we often have too much of it in the U.S. That's where a project saving lives on the other side of the world comes in. Our report tonight from NBC's Michael Oku.
From an Ethiopian slum, this is the smile a little girl gives when she's been given a second chance to live. 5-year-old Tekwamesha Y was born with a heart defect, a pulmonary artery so narrow it obstructed normal blood flow. She didn't eat or sleep, her mother says. She was awfully sick. The condition kills thousands of children here every year. But doctors saved Tekwamesha with the help of Ethiopia's only cardiac catheterization lab for children, a gift from an organization half a world away in a Denver suburb.
When I first started Project Cure, you can imagine my learning curve.
It's where Jim Jackson founded Project Cure, a nonprofit that collects surplus medical supplies from hospitals and then sorts, tests, and ships those supplies to the poorest clinics and hospitals worldwide. Scrubs for Kenya, scanners for Cambodia. Jackson, a former economist, came up with the idea after witnessing squalor at a doctor's clinic in the Brazilian highlands. So he promised he'd return with donated supplies, and he delivered.
The director of the hospital said to me, "You know what you really brought us? You brought us hope."
Since its first shipment in 1987, Project Cure has sent medical supplies to 123 countries. This year alone, it plans on moving $40 million worth to 70 hospitals around the world. All with the help of donations and the time of 10,000 volunteers, including retired ER nurse Millie Truitt.
When I touch things, I think, who is this going to touch?
Back in Ethiopia, where checkups now start with life-affirming hugs, doctors estimate the lives of some 2,000 children a year will be saved by that cath lab alone. Now I play. I can do whatever I want, Tekwamesh says. A little girl with a smile and a message across seas.
Thank you.
Michael Oku, NBC News, Centennial, Colorado.
Isn't it strange how princes and kings and clowns who caper in sawdust rings, and common folks like you and me are builders for eternity. For each is given a bag of tools, a piece of stone, and a book of rules. And each must form, ere life is flown, a stumbling block or a stepping stone. I've decided, and I know you have too, that we're going to spend the best of our life for the rest of our life helping other people be better off. When I see this little gal, all of what we've done is worth that little girl. But the reports that we're getting back now, it's not 2,000, it's 3,000 kids' lives who are saved. I mean, it's quantifiable. I mean, you can check it. The moms feed them the next morning. And that's just one hospital in Addis Ababa, the Black Lion Hospital in one country. And tonight, when I lay my head down in the Alumni House pillow, I know that thousands and thousands, we can't even count. It's like the waves washing up on the shores. You can't count the numbers of lives now. It's no longer 10,000 like Brian Williams says there. It's not 10,000 volunteers. We're 15,000 volunteers now strong with our main headquarters in Denver. And we invite you to come and look at it. We'd love to host you. It'll knock your socks off. And then large warehouses in Phoenix, in Nashville, because that's where all the headquarters of the hospitals are, and in Houston, Texas, and in Chicago. We just got a grant to open up another huge warehouse in the Philadelphia area. Our goal is to have 25 warehouses like that, like you see, with the full-blown operation in the United States. We now have 11 what we call our collection warehouses. We don't do all of the barcoding there. We don't do all of the stuff that we do to get them into these countries successfully. But we do collect in these warehouses, and then, bless their hearts, Walmart comes along with their big trucks and hauls them to our big warehouses that we do all of the distribution. And yet, we're not scratching the surface. And for 25 years, I quit counting after I'd worked in 150 countries, but we're shipping now to 130 countries around the world. And I don't want Anna Marie to just stand up. I want her to come up here for a second because she's your hometown girl right here in Nampa, Idaho. And Anna Marie and I met. Now, we'll take on any of you who have had a longer relationship. We were both born in Samaritan, in the same delivery room. We just went over there yesterday, and then I remembered her. Of course, we grew up together. My first memory of Anna Marie was when she was in the second grade, and her mom. A lot of you may have known the Keller Johnsons out in Melba. Howard was her big brother, and Floyd was her big brother, and Roger's her big brother, and Irma's her big sister, and we started dating, but I remember when she was in the second grade, and her mom made these little Shirley Temple curls. Can you see her? And she'd walk and she'd go boing, boing, boing. Nampa First Church, and I'd say, ooh, that's cool. That's cute stuff. Got to have some of that. And anyway, we dated all the time. We were at college high. And Janella, I'm telling you too, because these girls were the cheerleaders, and when we were playing the sports, I'd make a good shot or something. Anna Marie come out on the floor with her poms, and she'd go Jackson! And she just ended up doing that the rest of her life. Anna Marie left here and got her master's degree at the University of Colorado in Boulder, and then her PhD in the University of Denver, and then taught at 3 different universities in the Denver area and in public school. But then she started her own school for the gifted and talented in Evergreen. And here I am off running all over the world, starting, it was getting more and more. 250 days a year I'd be gone, sometimes sleeping in the worst places in the world, and on the ground in India and in Africa and China and Vietnam and wherever in the 150 countries. And she would keep the home fires burning. And then we decided, wait a minute, when are we ever going to spend some time together? I told her one day I would take her on my trips in the summertime, and we were bouncing along in a van somewhere up toward Da Nang, Vietnam. We didn't know where we were. Nobody had talked to us in English for several hours. And she said, is this the way it is all the time? And I said, yeah, pretty much. You don't even know where you are. You don't know where we're going to sleep, she said. Anyway, she came home and closed her school and decided to start traveling with me. And I've taken her to 48 countries. But I want you to know, you're not honoring Jim Jackson, you're honoring an institution, an NC institution. What kind of a neat institution with my girlfriend. Thank you, Denise. I kind of enjoyed being back here. We don't get back here as often. And I remember thinking just the other day, I really have enjoyed my adventure from starting across the street from Kurtz Park. And I learned to ride my bicycle on this campus, and they used to have a round road that went on the inside of Kurtz Park, over by the old drain ditch. And to grow up, College Church, when Dr. Corlett was here, this was College Church, and this is where we attended church, right where we're sitting. And then we went to Sunday school over in the speech hall. And adult Sunday schools were in the library, and they quadrant off some of you remember those. And that sign that used to sit up there, behind us in here. This place, I walked in this morning, I thought, man, that stage is little. And this place is small. It seemed huge when I was a little kid. But all of that time to realize that seek ye first the kingdom of God was penetrating in here somewhere and in here somewhere. And I was privileged to listen to some of the old greats, the greats of holiness, would stand on this place right up here. And you know what? You don't get away from that. Thanks be to the Spirit, the Holy Spirit of God, who convicts and convinces of right and will help you live right. So I have to say, I'm kind of excited about the adventure. I've been having fun. And I would recommend the way for anybody. I always had a feeling when I was hanging around this campus that life was going to be good. I was going to really enjoy it. From playing Little League baseball over in the park till the time we left. And in '82, I wrote a book entitled, What You Gonna Do With What You Got? And Dr. Bill Bright heard what I was doing, came all the way to Denver, and he said, Jim, don't stop. He said, we need what you're writing. He said, when you get done, I want you to count on training all of my staff people in Canada and America. Well, then it kind of took, we even got up there to Alaska, and then the Episcopalians grabbed hold of it and went like crazy, and the Catholics did, and the Baptists did, and Howard Miller even helped me. He was teaching as a textbook in Point Loma, and they taught it here in NNC. My own kids had to take my course and read my textbook. What you going to do with what you got? But out of that came an interesting invitation one day. from a group in Chicago. I had talked about the 1031 exchange clause, and we got involved when we left here and went to Colorado and got involved in the developing of ski areas in Winter Park. And then they were trying to get this crazy thing they never did think was going to actually start. It was called Vail. And we were buying what was sheep pastured, $126 an acre. That's what you want to do. You want to buy it by the acre and sell it by the square foot, right, darling? This is what Arlen does. He taught me well. And as a result of that, this group called me from Chicago and said, could you come and talk to us? And I was kind of busy and didn't find out who it was until I got there, and we started to exchange cards and met up at the Penthouse and one of the hotels. And it was a multinational head of Sears and Roebuck, multinational head of IBM, and it was Xerox, and a bunch of guys just a little tight knit, and they said, we're trying to discover how we can extend our market share into these developing countries, in these third world countries, because you can't do it. The dictators will skim it off the top, and the people never can get going. And what you were saying about the barter and trade and stuff, it makes sense to us. Well, I sat there and I thought, I don't have any silver bullet for these guys. I mean, whoa. But what it did was introduce me to a brand new concept, and that was international. I'd never thought about. I mean, between here and Lake Lowell isn't very international. Now you get out to Dry Lake, where we used to race our cars on the ice in the wintertime. But when I went home and I thought, whoa, and almost immediately on the heels of that, I was invited to another meeting in Indianapolis, and it was sponsored by the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. And they said, okay, you guys are the economists, and they set us at round tables. And they said, no holds barred, but we got to figure something out. We want you to develop, each table to develop economic model for the developing countries, for LDCs, for third world countries, and do whatever you want to do. And it was a hoot. Here we were dragging out Adam Smith and Division of Labor and all of that kind of stuff. And at one of the coffee breaks, a gal walked up to me and she said, my name is Maxine Partee, and I'm the personal representative of Robert Mugabe. Maybe you've heard of a place called Zimbabwe. You may know it as Rhodesia, but we've just taken over. And the Ian Smith regime is going to stay in Zimbabwe, but we've come to know that we don't have the economic expertise to run a country. And she said, while you were talking, you are the person that's supposed to come and help Robert Mugabe. Well, I think then of what I thought about Robert Mugabe is a whole bunch different than what I think of Robert Mugabe today. And I said, oh, and do what? No, you're supposed to come. And I said, well, let's correspond about it. So we did. We corresponded back and forth, and then Mugabe sent his nephew, Mr. Chikawari, who was on his cabinet, and another guy by the name of Makadam. And they came to our home in Evergreen, and I spent about a month with them, and I went back to Harare, helped them put some trades together. They had, if you remember what Zimbabwe looked like back in those days, they were the breadbasket of the whole continent of Africa. They were supplying enough food for all of Africa. And we went out there, and they just had abundant crops for 3 years, and they showed me what looked like buildings, and they were stacked with burlap sacks filled with maize, and then over the top they'd put black plastic. And the rodents were getting in the bottom, and the rain is getting in the top. And across the Zambezi River in Zambia, the people are starving to death because they had a lot of copper, and the copper market had plummeted. And I thought, well, this is kind of a no-brainer. Why don't you trade the copper for the maize? But the tribal problems were there. And eventually we did help them, got some warehouses in London where they could store the copper till the prices went back up. And from there, the embassies in Quito, Ecuador had me come there, then Lima, Peru, Caracas, Venezuela. Then for 3.5 years, we were in Brazil working with President Sarney and his chief economist, Antonio Bacelar, trying to repay the U.S. banks when they were running 3,000% inflation. And I kept asking God, I don't know I don't know why. What's the deal here on this kind of a circuitous route? And then I found out. I began to see the incredible need for medical attention in these developing countries. It hadn't made any difference to me before. I never looked at it. I didn't see it. And I promised a little doctor outside of Rio. He chased me all the way down to Belo Horizonte. And he said, come and see what I'm doing. Some of my friends have bought an old house, and we've remodeled it up in an area called Mesquite, 300,000 people, no medical facilities there. If the mom has problems, snags the placenta or something, dies, the baby dies, and there's nothing you can do about it. And he said, we want to help that. And he said, will you come and visit my little remodeled house? And I said, if I get back up to Rio, I'll do it. I went there, and I began to see, I walked in the little bedroom off to the right of this remodeled house, painted blue, pictures on the wall, little babies. Off in the corner was one little baby scale, rusty little baby scale sitting on a crate. That was his pediatric ward. I went into his kitchen, what used to be the kitchen, and here he has a cot in the kitchen and empty green oxygen canister. And he's actually doing procedures. Against one wall on the right, it was a gray metal cabinet with a glass front, and inside of it were re-rolled old dirty bandages. And I said, Dr. Neves, I'm not a medical man, but you have hundreds of people outside. Old women leaning up against the outside of the buildings trying to keep out of the sun. Moms carrying little babies on their hip, crying. They expect to come in here and you're going to help them. I said, you don't have anything to help them. Doesn't anybody help you? And he looked at me and he said, you're the economista. You should know that 3,000% inflation, even if we had money, we couldn't buy from US or UK because our crusados would flow out of the country and that'd be more inflationary. They won't let us do that. And the government isn't strong enough to help us. So Dr. Jackson, we're doing the best we can with what we got. I went, oh. I said, I don't know anything about medical, but I said, I think I could go back to Colorado where I live and I could get you some stuff donated. But I said, you got to promise me, I've been here long enough to know, if I bring stuff, you have to guarantee me personally that you will keep it out of the black market. I don't want to be part of your problem, I want to be part of your solution. A little smart aleck, he looked at me and grinned and he said, well, you are working directly with President Sarney in Brasilia. Why don't you go get guarantee from him? I go, oh man, this is getting complicated. So I got back on the airplane, went back to Brasilia and started working with Mr. Corbellini, who was the Minister of Health. He said, Jackson, if you bring stuff to Brazil, I will guarantee you that we will get it through customs, no problem. He said, secondly, I will give you a storage spot in Campinas at the university, and you will have the key. You determine where it goes. And I said, Mr. Corbellini, that's all I need to hear. And I got up and I shook his hand, and then I got back on the airplane, and I thought, oh, man, what have I just done to my life? I don't know anything about medical. I've been making this deal with these people. I don't know where to go get a Band-Aid. And all the way home, I'm fretting and stewing. I got back and called some of my friends together, and we went out to a little restaurant out in Littleton, Crestwood Restaurant. And I sat down with the guys, and I said, I'm in way over my head. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm an economist and a businessman, but I don't know anything about medicine. I know nothing. And I've promised these people, and I am going to help them. There's got to be somebody here who has a name or phone number or something that will let me have a clue, to someplace to start. I don't mind working hard, but somebody's got to tell me where to start. The guy on the other side of the table, he said, well, Jim, his name was Greg Lowe. He said, Jim, I can help you. He said, my partner Pete and I own diagnostic marketing. That's what we do. We bid on supplying all of the hospitals every year. Said sometimes we get the bid, sometimes we don't, but that's business. And he said, why don't you come out to the warehouse and we'll see if we can help you. I went out to his warehouse. And we started going up and down the aisles of the warehouse. And they started pulling off brand new supplies, putting them on pallets, having them set over by the door. They pulled off over $50,000 worth right there. And he said, okay, Jackson, go to Brazil and see how many lives you can save. And I got in my car, and I went up to Evergreen, where we live, and I got a hold of Anna Marie, and I said, something's happening. This isn't normal. We got our old Dodge truck, went back there and started. My first warehouse was our garage. My first volunteers on the front seat. I didn't know anything about shipping. I went out to a freight forwarder, and I said, do I have to buy one of those 40-foot containers? The little gal said, no, sweetie, you just pay us money. We'll come and get your stuff and deliver it where you want it delivered. When that first delivery went into, of course, we inundated that poor little guy with the clinic, but we started working with the two universities in São Paulo, the medical universities. And what happened when I began to see the whole institution change? Dr. Vilmar Thambeda, the head of the one in Puki University, he said, Jackson, he said, even our staff meetings have changed, where we could only agree on one thing, and that was we couldn't do it. They're now saying, but somebody believes in us. They've just sent us $3 million worth of stuff, and they got another loads coming. If they can do that and they believe in us, we'll figure out our problems. And then, of course, I didn't think the Project Cure would ever go farther than Brazil. I was happy just doing what I was doing. And then I think it was Hurricane Mitch or something. And the people from Guatemala, Peru, some of the other places came and said, why are you helping the Brazilians? Won't you help us? Don't you like us? And I said, sure, I love you. I'll be down there in a little bit. And it started growing all through Central America and South America. And then that was 91. And then the Soviet Union collapsed, and USAID came to us and said, we've given all of our stuff away out of our warehouses in Frankfurt. You're the only one that's got any good stuff left. Why don't we strike a deal? Because we want to put a new medical model from St. Petersburg to Moscow, all along the Volga River there, and see what we can do. And we just started pouring them, and pretty soon it was every one of the federations in the old Soviet Union. And there it went. And finally, Africa found us, and then China, and in Central Asia, Kazakhstan, every place. But it wasn't something that we had figured out. It was God's thing, seeking Him first and developing His kingdom. And He was more than eager to come and help us, help the people that He loved more than we even loved our own children. And nobody was there to help. I work in a world of reality and almost survival, because over 15 million kids, by the time they get 5 years old, die each year from really preventable causes, stuff that we can cure. I mean, a $2.50 IV injection starting kit. That kind of stuff. Even if you made the IV fluid, and you can't get it inside their little bodies, they're going to die. And I'm dealing with countries that have only $4 per capita per year that they can spend on health care. That's why so little can do so much. And I am so grateful. I just tell the Lord, okay, it's not me doing this. I don't know what I'm doing. I still don't know. I used to joke to people when I first started out, and I'd tell them that I thought a defibrillator was a lie detector. You could see if you're fibbing or not. I've come to a place where I've learned that your concern for others Your concern for others is the measure of your greatness. It's not how many houses or acres or whatever. And I want to spend the rest of my life, in fact, I want to spend the best of my life, a qualitative thing, for the rest of my life, helping other people be better off. Well, I was into Project Cure then. This is our 26th year, and I bumped into a little problem here, and I was thinking, I came real close to having some airplane wrecks, and I flew into Eritrea, and the terrorists got on. They waited until after landing in Addis, and then they headed out again, and the terrorists took over the airplane, walked into the cabin, put the gun to the pilot's head, and I'd gotten off, thankfully, in Addis, but just as they took off, and they said, fly us to Madagascar, and the guy said, we don't have enough fuel. Boom, blew his head off. So he puts the gun to the co-pilot's head and says, take us to Madagascar. Pilot said, yes, sir, we'll be there. Only he was right. We don't have enough gas. And the whole plane went down. The whole crew that I flew with from Paris all the way over there, everybody went. And about 6 or 7 of those things kind of get, I understand. You know, I've kept journals very carefully for all of these years, of 25 years, and I've written down every miracle, every close call, every story, everything. I know the ministers of health, and I now have 6,000 pages of stories. And so I was trying to collect those, thinking, well, I better get some of these ends pulled together, because I don't know when I'm not going to come back. Anna Marie would dump me off at that airport in DIA, and we'd just say, Lord, see that redhead with his head bobbing up in the crowd like that? You better send about 2 legion of angels. This guy's going to need it on this trip. One of the trips is when I started going into North Korea. And let me wind this up real fast. I love to tell stories. And you can imagine, we got along really well with the State Department. In fact, the State Department gave me their highest humanitarian award, the Florence Nightingale Award. And so we've worked very closely. But can you imagine, I'm on the phone, and I'm calling the Korea desk in what we call Foggy Bottom. That's the State Department in Washington, D.C. And I'm saying, hi, this is Dr. Jackson, and I need to have you help me get a visa put in my passport. Okay, I have a personal invitation from great leader Kim Il-sung, and I need a visa. So she said, what'd you say? I said, I have a personal invitation from great leader Kim Il-sung to come and spend his 81st birthday and celebrate with him. No, you don't. I said, well, I do. And she said, well, we're here to keep people like you from causing international incidents, so you're not going. And I said, well, I really think I ought to. She said, doesn't make any difference, you're not. Well, that was June, so by Thanksgiving time, they called me, and they said, we've vetted this whole thing out. You do have a personal invitation from great leader Kim Il-sung to come and spend his birthday in Pyongyang with him. But, she said, we have reason to believe that they're going to hold you hostage and kill you. And I said, okay. And she said, no, don't you understand? She said, at that time, this was 1991, 92, she said, nobody has any operatives in Pyongyang. The Swiss don't. Nobody does. And she said, as soon as you leave Beijing, you can only get your visa in Beijing. And as soon as you leave Beijing, you're on your own. And we have reason to believe they'll plant money on you or whatever and hold you hostage, because things are really getting tight on the 32nd parallel at that time. Can you imagine our little MiGs were trying to play chicken with our F-16s? And so I said, okay. Long story short, I went. And when we circled the field in Pyongyang, I saw, it's kind of like you see on TV, all these military people lined up, and that kind of stuff. And we landed, and they didn't have any jetaways. They just had a kind of a ladder operation. And onto the plane came this guy with a black suit, white shirt, black tie, and then two armed guys. And they came up and stood in front of the cockpit and said, "Mr. Jackson, step forward." And I go, "Oh, shoot. It didn't take very long to get in jail here." And so they took me down the ladder and put me in a personnel carrier, and they drove me over toward all these troops. When I got there, everybody broke out in song, and they were waving live azalea plants. They treated me as a hero, as the first one ever to come and help them with any kind of affection or love or attention. Well, it was an amazing thing. And they requested, they allowed me to meet the people I needed to meet. I asked lots of questions. They made me stay there. I had to go every time I went. I had to agree to stay there for 14 days. But they put me in my own guest house and had cooks and everybody. Well, I want to, so I don't do bird walks, I'm going to read just a little incident to you from on my fourth trip back to DPRK. I had a very rewarding experience. The different leaders enjoyed taking turns hosting me upon my return to Pyongyang. I had become good friends with the Minister of Health, Dr. Choi Chan-sik, and it was his turn to have me come to his department and welcome me. His offices were formal and elegant, with plush chairs, hand-woven carpets, and delicate lace furniture coverings. We sat at separate low-profile, hand-carved tables, being served insam or ginseng tea. And several attendants in the room transcribed every word that was spoken during our meeting. They did that all the time, even wherever we went. And they always come by twos, and, and they always have their pad. We joked and laughed together at the beginning before the formal protocol took over. The host always speaks formally first. Then the guest is given time for a brief response, and the discourse continues back and forth. Mr. Choi Chan-sik cleared his throat, and I knew it was time for the formalities to begin. "Mr. Jackson," he said, "3 more of your very large ocean-going cargo containers have recently received in our Nampo port, and I have personally overseen the distribution of the medical goods as we have discussed. Great leader Kim Il-sung, dear leader Kim Jong-il, and all the people of DPRK personally thank you for your kindness. But you are a mystery to us. We are somewhat confused. We have recorded every word that you have said while in the DPRK and have filed the words in our grand building of education. That would be like our Library of Congress. You have given millions of dollars worth of needed medical supplies and equipment to our people. We cannot figure it out what it is that you want. We have reviewed your words, and you never give away what it is that you want from us. Mr. Jackson, what is it that you want?" So I leaned back against the ornate lace in the chair, and I chuckled. "Dr. Choi," I said, smiling, "you've asked me a very direct question. I will give you a very direct answer. Had you not asked me a direct question, I'd have not given you a direct answer. Do you have time for a small story?" "Of course, yes. Go ahead, please." "When I was a little boy, I determined that I'd be a millionaire by the time I was 25 years old. You understand what a millionaire means, Mr. Choi?" "Oh, yes, Dr. Jackson." "My brothers and I worked very hard, and we tried to learn as much as possible about becoming rich. By the time I was 30 years old, I'd become 16 times wealthier than what I ever dreamed I would be in my entire life. But no one had taken the time to tell me that accumulating wealth wouldn't necessarily make me a happy man, and I wasn't a happy man. My wife and I talked about it, and we asked each other the question, just when were we most happy in our life? We agreed that it was during the time when we had no money, but only had love and good health and a dream. So we decided to give all of our wealth away and start over again. I asked God to forgive me for being such a selfish man, and promised that from that time forward I'd spend all of my energies and time in helping other people be better off. God answered my prayer and changed the mainspring of that ticking clock in my life, and I became now remember who I'm telling this to. I became a different person than before. And now you ask me directly what I want from you. The answer is, I want nothing in return from you for doing any good that I ever done or ever will do. I've given these medical supplies to you and your people because I love you. And I will never ask anything in return from you. The minister of health was totally stunned as he sat looking at me. He then lowered his cup of tea down to the ornately carved table and stood up. When he stood up, I stood up. I was culturally aware enough to know that Asians do not touch each other in public. They just don't. But Dr. Choi came to where I was standing, and he looked at me in the eye and he said, I was educated to hate you. I was trained to kill you, and I would have. But he said, you have come to us with this love. And he reached out and threw his arms around me, a big bear hug. He pulled me in and he said, you are my brother. I love you. And I thought, God, help me understand that. You opened the door. I couldn't shoot my way in here. I have a strong belief. If I follow this closely, being back, I haven't been there since the new guy's there. Maybe not ever go back. But I have a belief there are 27 million people north of that 38th parallel. Another little cute story. I did get some Bibles in there. and I requested to go to their church because they say they have freedom of worship. So I would gouge them. I'd say, hey, you say you have freedom of worship. I want to go to your church. Okay. What would happen is I'd have to take all their intelligence people with me to interpret. Loved it. The old prophet Jeremiah was an economist. In fact, I keep reading the Bible and I keep saying that's an incredible economics textbook. You know what an economist, the only thing economists are good for, all they're supposed to do with all their charts and graphs is to predict the future. That's what Jeremiah is trying to do. King said, go out and find out. You bring back the good report, you save your head. Otherwise, I chop it off. And here was the final words of Jeremiah. He said, let not the wise man boast of his wisdom. Let not the strong man boast of his strength. Let not the rich man boast of his riches. But let him who would boast of this, that he knows and understands me, the God who exercises kindness, justice, and righteousness on this earth. And in these things I delight, saith the Lord of hosts. You want to put a smile on God's face today? You don't have to go to North Korea. Spend the rest of your energy, the rest of your time in kindness, justice, and righteousness on this earth. Isn't it strange how princes and kings and clowns who caper in sawdust strings, common folks like you and me, are builders for eternity? For each is given a bag of tools, a piece of stone, and a book of rules. And each must form ere life is flown, a stumbling block or a stepping stone. Let's commit together as alums to go from here, continuing to build stepping stones, not stumbling blocks. Together, we can do it. Thank you.
Just remain standing. Was that powerful or what? I've been to Weezer and back. Yeah. Okay, we're going to sing Hallelujah, Amen, and I want to really hear you. This is a choir piece now. Take yourselves back a few years ago when we sang that in this very chapel, and it really rang. And let's really do it. Give us an intro, Ron.
I'm going to pray a benediction, and then we'll ask you to be seated. Darrell has some instructions for us. And my benediction, I think all of you can agree with. Would you bow your heads? Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.